morning and welcome to our Business Analytics webinar. My name is Lara Darcy and I am the Marketing Manager for the School of Business and Management. Today, you will hear from Dr. Georg, our Program Director of Business Analytics at the School of Business and Management, and Dr. Sebastian, who's a reader in mathematics from the School of Mathematics. You'll also hear from Margarita, who will share her current experience here at Queen Mary. If you could please post your questions in the Q&A chat box, we will get to them after the presentation. So over to you, Georg.
Good morning. So welcome to the MSc Business Analytics. So Sebastian and I will be sharing this presentation with you. And I'm just going to try and play with this a little bit. So now I can see myself. I hope you can see me speaking as well. And when it's Sebastian's turn, you should be able to see him too. So, let me just pull that over. Okay, so now there's Sebastian and Lara and Margarita all in the video together. That's great. Okay, so the MSc Business Analytics has been around now for 4 years. And this year we've introduced a significant innovation in that we're now allowing for students to join us in January. And part of the point of this talk is to talk you through how that will work. So obviously this is in response to the COVID crisis and the fact that many students who would have joined us in the regular sessions weren't able to for various restrictions that they might have been facing. It might have been that you personally felt unsure whether you wanted to come to London or that actually legally it would have been impossible. All right, so let me take you through, sorry, let me just see what's going on with my slides here. There we are, okay. All right, so the background for setting up a course like this was that there's been a significant shift in the way that businesses operate. So for a very long time, businesses had a fair amount of information about clients and a little bit of information maybe about their rivals, but they really didn't have very much data about how they operated internally and externally that would have allowed them to really mine the data and learn a lot from that. And that's obviously been changing significantly. The main driver of this has been the advent of the internet and all the technologies around it, including, of course, smartphones, global positioning systems, etc. And so we've got this new type of manager. Now, Jim Barksdale, was one of the first to come up with this view, right? Saying that if we have data, he was happy to look at data and analyze data and extract insights from data. But if we were still in the old world in which there wasn't much data there, then he was the boss and his opinion was going to drive where the company was going. So we're shifting towards a world in which more and more companies, more smaller companies, mid-sized companies, are increasingly relying on data to try and improve their businesses. And obviously also in this crisis that we're facing now, this is becoming significantly more important. So there's a huge market there now for employees who have an understanding of analytics methods to deliver insights. And the important thing here, this is how Sebastian and I, when we discussed how to set up this MSc 5 years ago, the important thing here is that we're going for people who are at the intersection of the technical skills and the understanding of how the business works and what the business environment is like. So we're not going to be producing students who are technical experts or specialists who are just programmers. We're actually planning or aiming to produce students who can talk to expert programmers, but who can also talk to the management and who can transfer anything that's learned from the specialists up to the management in a way that makes sense to management. That's a very important point about this course. So here on this slide, you can really see how things have progressed in the past, right? So initially, companies were very much almost offline, just collecting information about what was going on inside these companies. And then we've got the big data wave, where companies in Silicon Valley and then subsequently in other places start using internet, mobile technology to collect data. And now we're increasingly moving towards an even finer understanding of what's going on, in the sense that we're beginning to use sensors in all sorts of components of a factory or a business to try and understand what is happening inside the company and outside the company with the product it produces. So an example here would be a company that produces engines for aeroplanes, for example. GE does this, and they have a lot of sensors in the engine so that they can actually tell what is going on with the engine while it's in flight. So the GE engineers will know whether something is broken when the plane lands somewhere. And this is a completely different way of running a business than it was 10 years ago, when the airline would have called up GE and said, there's something wrong with our engine. Can you please send somebody, right? So it's just a different world now that we're moving into. And increasingly, again, data matters a huge amount here. So General Electric has been investing a lot of money in this. And when you look at what goes on in business analytics, there's a very broad range of analytical tasks. Some of these look deceptively simple. So if you look at a dashboard like this, you've probably been looking at lots of COVID-related dashboards recently. They pull together huge amounts of information in what is supposed to be a simple representation, so it's easy to understand what's going on, and you can quickly work out what the numbers mean. It still is tricky. It requires quite a lot of work in the background to make sure that the data feeds are reliable, and then obviously to work on a way of presenting the data that's clear and doesn't mislead the user. Then slightly more technical, we've got prediction, where we try and work out how things will develop on the basis of current data. Sometimes what we're interested in is actually understanding the mechanisms behind a certain phenomenon. So we're looking for what we would call causal evidence. That's something we cover in the course. So these are methods from social sciences where we try and extract the actual explanation for what is going on in the data from the data. And one way of doing that is to try and use experiments. And then in some settings, we do what's called prescription, where you're really trying to optimize of the way a business operates. For instance, using mathematical models. So this is something that's taught inside the School of Mathematics in this MSc. This would be, the prime example here would be that you're trying to work out how to best deploy a fleet of trucks that are delivering parcels or other things to various destinations. And so the question there is, how do you route the truck so that it's most efficiently used? All right, so these are the kinds of things that you'd be working on in this MSc. And so here, it's worthwhile to bring this in. Why? Sometimes, depending on the cohort, we have some students who will, and depending on their background, who will say, oh, I want even more technical knowledge. I want even more programming languages. I want to learn all of these things. I need to know R and C++ and SPSS and so on and so forth. And then we've got other students who are kind of, who are a little bit more careful about this. The reason why we've positioned the MSc at the interface between the technical knowledge and the business knowledge is because of what Susan Athey, who's a very well-known professor in the US, has said about what businesses actually need. So in her sense, and I totally share this in my experience with the course in the last couple of years, the businesses, of course, they need the specialists as well, but they do need people who can bridge the gap between the specialists and the actual general management, who are largely still people who don't have terribly deep technical skills in terms of analyzing statistical results. So you need that bridge between these two types of people in the business. And if you can do that well, then as Susan says, you're a rock star. You're a very sort of researched, or it's a commodity that businesses are really looking for. And we find that with our MSc in the last couple of years. We've had quite a few students who've left the MSc early because they've had job offers. So at the end of the MSc, they've had to juggle their projects and the new jobs. I get that again. I never had that in previous courses that I taught. And we also have quite a few students who actually join the companies that they do their projects with. So that too is an outcome that we see quite frequently. Sorry, let me just go back to the slides. So here are some of the challenges if you're in that kind of role. You do need to understand the business model and the factors that drive the business model that you're operating in. So again, you know, in my experience, when I've talked to companies, it's often the case that there are people in there who are deep specialists in data processing or in bringing together data sets from lots of different places. I have a good friend, for example, who runs a finance business, and he has 1 or 2 employees in that business who are really amazing in their ability to collect data and bring it together. But the fascinating thing is that often these specialists have very little understanding of the value of the work they're doing. They don't understand how it translates for other people. And so that what they lack is this understanding of the business model and the opportunities that they're creating for a business by doing the work that they're doing. And that's really where we're trying to position our students at this intersection. And in order to be able to do that, you need a good command of statistics and programming. You need to understand what the person who's doing that specialist work is actually delivering to you. And then you need to learn the skill of explaining what you've found with your analysis to people who are non-specialists and to convince them that they need to listen to you. Right, and now we get to a very important slide here. So this slide it sets out the structure of the course, and you'll see that you know, normally when you'd be coming in this semester here, semester A would be at the top of this list, and then we would be moving through to semester B, which is coming up now. So Margarita at the moment is sort of halfway through her semester A, and she's taken this course with me already and is taking leadership now. And on the other side, she's taken she's taking data analytics and programming. So those modules are running for her group. Now for your group, who are coming in January, we're maintaining most of the structure of the course. So you will be sharing modules with Margarita and her cohort. We've adapted the structure slightly in order to make sure that the introductory courses that are technical, that are statistics related, run again, so that you can catch up if you like, or that you can kind of be immersed in those before we get to the group projects in the summer. So these are very important. This is the core of the program. The idea here is that you work in small groups on projects that we get from companies that we've been working with. And we, in the last couple of years, this has worked really well. We've got increasingly diverse set of companies in London and also internationally who've come to us and provided projects. Sometimes students themselves will be coming from a company and bringing a project with them. So I've got an example for this in the slides a bit later on. And the students will work more or less self-directed on this for a couple of months. We've got tutors from the school who help the students overcome any technical issues that they may encounter and give them advice in how to move through some of the literature. And then we have sessions with the people from the companies at various intervals over that period, so that there's feedback from the companies about the results that they're getting. So this is, if you like, part of the dissertation. Another component that's important here is the masterclass, and this is also going to change for you a little bit. So Margarita's group will be having the masterclasses in semesters A and B. In your case, we've moved all of the masterclass elements to the semester A, and that would be the next autumn. So after the summer, when Margarita and her group are finished and leave the university, you would be catching up, if you like, and taking semester A courses together with the new intake and doing the masterclass that you've missed at that point. So that's how we've decided to integrate you into the existing course and into what we've already started doing with the current set of students. So I can imagine that this might lead to a number of questions, and I'm happy to take those later on when we're through the presentation. Okay, let me just go back to the slides and move forward. So Sebastian, this is Sebastian's section now.
Hello, my name is Sebastian Bano Rollin, and I'm in charge of the more analytics side of the program. So that is the techie stuff, the stats, and I'd like to talk about a couple of things now. So I'd like to start explaining, building up on one of the previous slides that mentioned that people that are in the confluence of business and technology are somehow rock stars. My background is in investment banking. I've worked in industry for many years, too many years maybe, and so that is part of what I bring to the masters, the kind of outside influence. And the picture you see here is a trading floor, and this is the kind of situation, the kind of environment in which I used to work before. And one episode I recall from my experience in banking was in summer. We received a couple of summer interns, and we gave them what seemed a very interesting project, a project where they had to take some currencies and build some baskets and then check which one was more profitable. And that had the possibility of being something revenue generating, something very, very interesting, something anomalous for an internship task, no, because it was very much at the edge of the revenue generating part of the bank. And these two interns, well, we basically described what had to be done. You have to take Excel, then connect it with Bloomberg or do this, the other, and then create these baskets and check which is better. And one of them said, okay, fine, I'll get on with it. And the other one said, I'll have to learn some Excel. So over the summer, one of the students spent their summer learning Excel, and the other one spent the summer finding the best deals. So at the end of the summer, there's one job, and you can imagine who gets the job. So this is a very real situation where it's clear that you need to have both the business kind of understanding, but also you need to have some degree of techie skills to put things in play. No? Because however much theory you know, if you can't really build a spreadsheet or do stuff that can be used in business, that somehow is limiting. So Georg, can we move to the next slide?
Yeah, sorry. Is that the next slide, or there we are?
Yeah.
That's it.
So this basically illustrates this fact of life, that you need to somehow combine your business understanding with techie skills. And techie skills basically means Excel, VBA, SQL, Python, that sort of stuff. And if you're in that position in which you combine these two skills, as you saw in one of the earlier slides, that is something that employers value a lot. So our job in this MSc is to make sure that you're in that very good position in the intersection of the techie and the business side of things. So can we move to the next slide? And one of the things that we've designed in this master's is to offer you a credibility in your CV, so that gains traction in the job market. Because everybody can write, they know some Excel in their CV. I don't know, my mother does that as well. But of course, it's very different if you can say that you have a formal official certification from Microsoft. And that is precisely something that we offer in this course. So you will have the opportunity to take this exam and get this certification on your CV, which is something that in our experience with past students is a massive door opener in the market. So that's something that you get in this program. You also get some other exposure to professional software. For example, the Bloomberg system is a system that is used in the finance industry to access news and market data. You will have access to this system, and you will also have access to the official Bloomberg certification. So again, one extra thing that you can put on your CV, and that's going to have a big impact in the job market. There's a couple of other things that we also offer. We offer premium access to DataCamp, which is an online technology education provider. So if you want to learn some extra stuff, if you want to gain some extra background, you can use DataCamp and access in the region of 300 courses that are in the premium category, and it will be free for you. You also will have an elective module where you will cover the statistical software that's called SAS, and that also comes with an official certification. So these are a number of things that you will be able to put in your CV to gain a massive edge in the job market. So Georg, we'll move to the next slide. So the next thing I wanted to do is just describe a couple of our modules, just as a bit of a sampler. One will be a compulsory module, and the other one is an elective module. So you get a bit of a feel for what kind of things you will get to do on the more analytic side of the course. And both are modules that I happen to teach, so I know them in quite some level of detail. The first one is this compulsory course called Programming for Business Analytics. And in this course, you will be learning a lot of detail of how you use Excel in industry, how you use the programming language that underlies Excel, which is called VBA. And also you will learn to use a relatively simple language, but it's at the core of all the databases in the world, which is called SQL. So all of these things you will be learning in this module. And this, again, is something that will bring you close to industry practice. So can we move to the next slide? The next slide is a course that is more centered around finance. This has no, both this course and the previous one have no prerequisites. So you do not need to know anything about Excel or VBA or R or any of these things to take these courses. These are all introductory. In financial data analytics, we're going to be using a number of technologies, and we're going to be providing you a set of samples of how these things are used in industry. So you will get to learn a bit about R, Python, SQL, and some of the more sophisticated parts of Excel. So it's things called Power Query, etc. So that is the content of this module. And this module will be centered around finance problems. But again, this will be self-contained, and there's no need for any finance knowledge beforehand. So that is it. So is the next slide, am I done? Or is there?
Yes, I think so.
Now it's over to you, Georg.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, when I gave you the overview of the course, we've got two big modules. One is this masterclass module, which runs over 2 semesters, or in your case, then it will run in semester A at the end, which is a dissertation level module. And then we've got the group project. Now, the masterclass is a mix of 2 elements that are quite useful. One is a set of speakers who come from a whole range of different businesses and introduce you to a wide range of insights into how analytics is used in these different settings. And the other element is an introduction to Python, which is a widely used programming language that a lot of our students are very keen to learn about, and a particular package inside Python, which is called TensorFlow, which was released 2 or 3 years ago by people at Google, and is particularly useful in letting you program neural networks and other complex sort of machine learning algorithms in a reasonably simple way. And so the combination of these 2 elements makes the masterclass a slightly unusual class, but also I think a class that adds a lot of interest to this course. And we've had a number of student groups in the past who've then gone on to use TensorFlow in their group projects over the summer to try and help them solve some of the problems that the companies pose. Now, in this particular context, that's going to be a bit tricky because we've got the masterclass coming afterwards. But nonetheless, we will find solutions to deal with those questions as and when we encounter them. The intention is certainly to have the new intake and the old intakes both to be working on these group projects in the summer when we get past that sort of semester B. All right, and now the next example here is from a course that Margarita hasn't seen yet. So that's the course that's going to come in semester B. And one of the core examples that I use there to introduce students to applications of statistics, and particularly the focus here is on the question of causal analysis. So can we show that a particular intervention in a business causes something to happen? So the question here, very topical at the moment, and we've been using this for a number of years, so it precedes COVID, is whether allowing employees to work from home is a good idea. And the experiment that's being run is a Chinese company that was situated in Shanghai. They're a company that offers travel booking. So they will book your trip and your hotel and any other elements of a trip of a business trip that you might need. And the question the company asked itself was whether it might be a good idea to let some of these employees who are situated in a call center do their work from home. And for obvious reasons, this has become a very topical question. And it's interesting, before you start really looking at the data, to discuss with students what they think could be pros and cons. So if you were managing your own business and you had 10, 20 employees, would you be comfortable to let them work from home? Or would you have doubts about their productivity and their dedication, how much work they'll actually be likely to do? So there's an interesting, I've put a link here for those of you who receive the slides later on. This links to a BBC program with the academic who actually wrote the paper that we're using in the course here. And the picture on the left-hand side shows you the results of this. So what we've got here are blue and red are the average productivity measures for the two groups. So one group here, the red group, is the group of people who are randomly chosen to work in the office all the time. So they just stay in the office, basically. And the blue group are the group who initially work in the office. And then at this point here, where the white line goes down the data, they switch to working from home. And so you can see already in the picture that both groups become slightly more productive after one group goes to work from home. But the blue group becomes much more productive relative to the red group as they shift from working in the office to working at home. And as we'll discuss when you come to the course, it turns out that allowing employees to work from home has a number of advantages. So even if employees were slightly less productive, you might be willing to let them work from home because, for instance, you can share, you can reduce your cost of office rent. You can reduce the size of the call center that you have to run in order to house those people who are still working in the office. And that cost saving alone could be quite interesting for a company in a city like Shanghai or, for instance, in London. But it turns out that actually you don't necessarily face a cost by letting people work from home. They can actually become more productive if you send them home, for instance, because let's say there's less noise around them because they're all sitting in their own little offices. Obviously, there are downsides as well, and some of those have become clear in this data, and we'll discuss all of this. So this is one of the applications that I use to teach students about what I call causal analysis. So the analysis of an experiment that a business might run to learn something about a particular change in how they operate. And while you might say, okay, this is quite interesting, but this is probably quite a rare thing, it turns out that experiments are not rare at all. And some companies like Amazon use them on a daily basis. They've actually automated them. So effectively, what happens at Amazon is if they make a change to their web pages, they have software in the background which allows them to change an aspect of the web page and to serve that new structure of the web page up to a random set of users. They collect data from this, and then the software evaluates whether that particular change, let's say a change in the size of the font or a change in the color of something on the web page, whether that is effective. If it turns out to be effective in a way that we will learn about, then they implement it and they roll it out to everybody else. So many businesses now have this kind of capability. So it's certainly worthwhile understanding exactly how this is done and what the pitfalls are. All right, now I'll take you to the group project. So this is the big module in the summer when you work on company projects. And this is an example from last summer. So these are the students who came before Margarita's group joined us. So we had a student who joined us from Dubai, and he was working and is still working at this company called Western International Group, whose business is to import products for the home, for the kitchen, for the bathroom, small items of furniture, and then to their wholesaler. So they pass these on to small and medium-sized shops throughout Dubai. and those guys then sell them. So this could be anything from a bar of soap or a candle up to a, I don't know, a bigger item of furniture. So it's a very heterogeneous range of products. And the question they set us, the problem they set us was the following. They said, we want an application that we can give to our salespeople so that when they go and visit the client, they can have a list of products that they could talk to that particular company about adding to the range that they're already selling. Yeah. So the idea is your sales force are going out to talk to the supermarkets and other retailers that you've got about their experience with the products they already receive from Western International. And you then go in and say, well, why don't you add, this set or that set of products, which would complement very well what you're already selling. And obviously you need to tell them then a good story why that particular range of new products would be interesting for them. And so the idea was, well, can we learn something from the data from those people who are already selling those products? So ideally what would be going on is we'd have some kind of statistical process that allows us to mine the data of all the clients that the company already has, and then to learn something about, what other stores are already selling as a range of products, and how this works for them and how it might work for the client that you're talking to on the day. So this required a lot of clustering. So we had to learn a lot about clustering. And one thing that we thought was quite interesting was to look at the concentration of the sales. So how many categories do certain companies sell? So is the retailer very focused just on gardening products, or are they very focused just on kitchen products? Yeah. So do we have these very specialized retailers, or do we have very broad retailers who are perfectly willing to sell a whole range of very, very distinct products? And so we put this in the data. We just collected the data that they sent us, and I asked the students to create this graph here, which on the left-hand side you can see has log sales. So this is just the size of the retailer. So how much product do they sell? And you can see we've got some very large retailers here. And then on the right-hand side, we also have some quite small retailers who are selling comparatively much less. And then this bar on the right-hand side of the graph here is a set of retailers who are very, very focused. They only sell one category of product. Whereas as you move over to the left here, you increasingly have retailers who are quite diversified and who are selling a broad range of products. So this picture by itself was something that the people at Western International had never seen before. It never crossed their mind to look at their data in this way. And they were quite interested in understanding this. They didn't realize that they had these quite distinct groups of clients, right? So we've got a big cloud here on the left where we've got very diversified clients, and then we've got this rather distinct group of people on the right who are very specialized. And just the fact that there are these two quite separate sets of clients was news to them, and it was interesting. And then you can obviously see that for some reason there's a limit to the growth that a very focused retailer can achieve in this setting. So that's an interesting piece of information itself as well. So these are the kinds of things that we can find out. And I think when they went back afterwards to work in the company, it was Western International very interested in these results. And I just looked at LinkedIn yesterday, actually, and Faiz was very positive about his experience in London and also about the results he got from the MSc. And he sounded quite happy now that he's back in Dubai with this experience under his belt. So that's an example of one of these group projects that we can offer you in the summer, and that are quite distinctive for this course. I think, as far as I know, none of the other business analytics degrees that you could take in London will offer you this experience. Right, so here's another example. This was a group of Chinese students who were very keen to learn a little bit about the US economy and how that's been faring in the context of COVID. So we tried to understand a little bit, what kind of data could we collect that would allow us to get an insight into how COVID is affecting various US cities. And you know, you want to do this as sort of with as much sort of a real-time element as possible. And that's obviously been something that's concerned quite a few people. And, you know, they use a whole range of different data. So people at the big consulting companies use data on footfall, which is collected sometimes in supermarkets or in malls. They'll collect obviously data from urban transit systems or from motorway cameras or similar sort of sensors like that. What we ended up using, this is very interesting, that the students came up with this. They used data from Airbnb, which is posted by somebody fairly regularly. And their idea was that they could see how many rooms or apartments were being offered in various cities in the United States as the crisis sort of sweeps through the country. And then you can obviously also see the bookings for these rooms. And this data is fascinating because it really shows you how activity kind of collapses as sort of the virus sort of explodes in various places. And, you know, we connected that with data from Google, for instance, where we can see what people are searching for on the internet. And then if you put the two together, you can really see that there's a story there. As people start to search more for, you know, where's the doctor, where's the hospital, how do I get treatment for COVID? You see at the same time the sort of Airbnb data indicating that activity is really collapsing because lots of people are stopping to offer their flats, or there just isn't any demand because nobody wants to go anymore. So this is another project that we did this summer that was really interesting and very, very topical. Right, so that's really the run through. I think Sebastian and I have tried to give you a broad sense for the kinds of modules that we have on the course, what makes the MSc special. So that's both the masterclass and this group project, I think are you know, quite distinctive elements. But I think Margarita will have a few things to say about this from her end in her words that come next. So I'll stop sharing my slides now and hand over to her.
Hello. So can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So my name is Margarida and I am Portuguese. So I just wanted to say some things about what I have experienced from this past 3 months and my master's. So I wanted to say that one of the main reasons why I chose this master's was exactly the combination between technology and business, which was what I was looking for coming from a biomedical sciences degree. I feel like it gives me the exact required technical skills to enter the business world. So the Excel skills that I've been learning, both from the programming class and from the Excel certification exam, where you can study for, have given me exceptional Excel skills. And from coding, I have been learning Python and R and SQL, which are really important. The second thing I wanted to touch on was what I enjoyed the most on this program. And it was kind of difficult to choose one thing, so I chose two things that I wanted to share. The first one was the group projects. Initially, in my previous degree, I wasn't very happy about group projects, but I've realized that they're really important, and this is what it's going to give you the skills for your work for the job world. Because when you're working, you really need to work with different people that you don't know, people that you don't communicate as well. So this is really important to send your message across to other students and also understand what other students are trying to tell you. And so out of my 5 modules for this semester, 4 out of them I have to do group projects, and some of them you can choose to work on with people that you already know, but others you have to work with random people that you might not know. And this is just really important to practice your skills, your communication skills. And for me, I'm enjoying it a lot. And also, because of COVID, I don't really know a lot of people for my course. So this is a really good way to also get to know other people that might not be in London yet. Next, I also wanted to mention the blended learning. Also, because of COVID, most of our lectures are obviously through online platforms, and there are a few professors who do Q&A sessions on campus, which are also really good if you want to get some just social interaction with different people. You can go to campus and attend some Q&A sessions and ask all your questions about a specific module. But on the other side, this blended learning is really good because you can learn at your own pace. So some people obviously work slower or faster than others. So this really allows you to choose your pace and kind of organize yourself accordingly to your lectures. So it's really good. And then finally, I wanted to give some tips for the incoming students. And these are tips that I just think they would be important. So one of the first one is the online summer coding courses. I didn't do it personally. I didn't do it, and I don't feel in any way disadvantaged from not doing it. I feel like you don't really have to do it. It's just if you want to feel advantaged, you should do it because you'll be in a way ahead of the topics. So that's one thing that I would say. The next one is just never hesitate to ask any questions that you have to ask to both all of your professors and to your classmates. Just if you have any, other people might also have the same question. So by you asking the question, you're helping not only yourself, but others. So it's really important to ask questions. And then my last tip is to build a relationship with your classmates. So of course, during COVID, this is really difficult, but you can, for example, make WhatsApp group chat or just any platform group chat, and you can post your link on Facebook, so on the Queen Mary Facebook page, so anyone can access and join the group. And this way, you really build a relationship with everyone in your course, and you can ask as many questions about deadlines or about projects that you might have. So this is a really important thing that we did back in September that really helped me go through just 3 months. So this is all I have to say, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Margarita. And thank you, Georg and Sebastian. That was fantastic. So we have quite a few questions that have come through. So I might get the ball rolling because we do only have about 15 minutes left. So Margarita, I might start with you. And we've got a question here from a student regarding what is the biggest difference between studying a bachelor's and a master's? So could you shed some light on this, please?
Yeah. For me, since I didn't do a business or a technology undergraduate, it's been very different. I feel like one of the main things is the amount of modules we have. In a master's, we didn't have as many modules per semester than what I have now. But at the same time, it's a smaller group. So it's really like a small kind of second family that you can kind of count on. So it's really different. For my undergraduate, I only met a few, like 10 people, because you were 300 students. So it was really difficult to meet other people. But now I feel like I kind of know most of my classmates, and it's really easy to work with everyone else. And you just need to devote all your hours, just work as hard as you can, and it should be fine.
Thank you. On that point, we do have a couple of students asking about prior knowledge for this course. So I might put this to you, Georg, about do students need to have any prior programming or coding knowledge for this course?
No, I don't think they do. I don't think they need to have. So we've been quite careful in the selection of all of the students to see that they have some exposure to mathematics and statistics and that they feel happy with those subjects. So that's important, just because obviously the focus of this course is very much on this, or some of it is very much on this technical side. And I think students who are not comfortable with exposing themselves to that kind of technical work will struggle. And so we try to do our best to make sure that we don't put people in that position. But I anyway think there's a very strong element of self-selection here. I doubt that very many people would be interested in the course if they weren't prepared to engage with these programming languages. And in fact, my experience has been more that students, as Margarita has said, we do our best to give you all sorts of opportunities, either because we teach the material ourselves or because we point you towards online courses or certifications where you can catch up on some of these skills. So we there's a broad range of options here. There are a couple of things to notice. So we have found, or I have found in the past, that if anything, our student groups, certainly the more vocal students, have pushed us to add more. So they've said, we want, initially, for instance, we were teaching mainly with R and SAS. And then we had a very big group of students who said, oh, we definitely need Python as well. And, once that is the default, you might have the odd student who's going to come along and say, and I need this and this as well. And so it's very important to bear in mind that what we're really teaching the students is to learn how to interact with a programming language. And from that perspective, actually, one language understood properly is much more important than 25 different versions that you understand a little bit. Because once you've understood one of these things, you can transfer that understanding to lots of other programming languages quite easily. And that's really, I think, we've had speakers coming in who've said that very clearly. This is an area in which things move very quickly. So, TensorFlow at the moment is still widely used, but I'm sure if we looked very carefully, we could probably already identify new packages that are beginning to replace it and become even more, widespread. And so it's important that we teach the students the facility to acquire knowledge about a package like this, and and then to move on when the time comes. Yeah. So broadly, the answer is you don't have to worry if you don't know about some of these languages that we've talked about now. What's important is that you're happy to engage with them.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. On that, so could you describe, we've got a question here about career and graduate outcomes. So from the top of your head, any career position students have gone into, either it be on the technical side, or is it just the business side, or is it a hybrid of both?
Yeah, so I can certainly say something about this. So we have a very broad range of students. We have students who come from China, we have students who come from India, Pakistan, the subcontinent. We have students from Africa, students from England. Last year we had a student who came from Brazil. This year we have a student who's come from the United States. So, we've got students who are coming from lots of different cultures, and depending on where they come from, they have slightly different intentions also in terms of where they think they want to go afterwards. Some of them may, as I mentioned, like Faiz, we have students who come and already have an employer in the background, and once they finish the course, they return to that employer. We have students who come to England because they are hoping to integrate into the UK job market, and that's working increasingly well. The range of jobs is very broad. I'm trying to stay on top of it in terms of my links with past students on LinkedIn. So just now I'm writing a reference for a student who's applying for a job at the United Nations Commissioner for Refugees in Turkey.
Wow.
And so he's, but if you look at it, he's worked for the Turkish telecommunications regulator, both before and after before he came to London and after he left us. And he's doing a PhD at the same time. So Abdullah was really somebody who's had an incredible CV already when he came to London, and he's just sort of working very hard on this. And I've had various students who've come from China who also have gone on to jobs at various UN agencies, or at least to sort of placements there. We had, in the first year, we had a student who is Spanish, who works here in London in a company that sort of does security for other businesses, so in sort of IT security. So effectively, they place a little bit of software in the servers and computers that various companies run, that tracks the kinds of calls that are made to those computers' interfaces from outside the company. So who is trying to connect to ports on that computer or server, and what kind of data are they sending in and out? And so there's a technical side to that, as you can imagine, which is really very specialist, where people are looking at the logs that are coming out of these machines, trying to understand what's going on. Is somebody hacking into this business, trying to steal something, or trying to sort of destroy the server, or whatever it might be? And then there's a marketing side to this. There's a marketing team that's going around trying to acquire new customers, or to learn what the customer's experience has been with this particular product and adapt it. And Ricardo's job has been to work for this company at the interface, again, between the very technical people who are doing the kind of supervision of all of these machines, and the marketing people who are acquiring new customers. And before COVID came, he traveled a lot to Spain. He was traveling to lots of cities in Spain, kind of acquiring new customers and managing the ones they had. Now he's doing a lot of this from home. So that's the kind of business. And then just to mention, we've been lucky for the last 3 years. We've had projects from Ernst & Young, and a couple of our students have gone there. So that's kind of consulting. And most recently, the students have gone into the group at Ernst & Young that works on AI technology. So they have their own in-house AI specialist group that works worldwide on all sorts of projects that Ernst & Young might be exposed to. And we've had a couple of students who've gone on to work there. Other examples that I remember, last year we had a first project with Petro Ineos, which is a Chinese petrochemical company. It's sort of got an office in London. We did a project for them, and one of our students ended up staying there. So there's a very broad range.
Broad range, wide range.
Yeah.
And international as well,
Mm-hmm.
which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Going on this point, Margarita, sorry to put you on the spot, but what would be your career aspiration, or what would you like to do after your master's?
Yeah, so right now I've been very confused about this, but right now I think my goal is to get into a consulting company, and maybe be able to get into health projects and use both my undergraduate degree,
Okay.
master's, my technical skills, and kind of mix everything together. So this is kind of my goal for now.
Oh, fantastic. No, that sounds like a wonderful and unique combination,
Yeah.
which is very, very exciting. I might pop on to, so we've got a few more specific questions about actual study and what it will look like throughout the year. So I've got a question from a student about how many hours of lectures and seminars will they have per week, and how much independent study will they need to do?
Right. So, I mean, Margarita should certainly say something about what her experience has been of this. So I think it's quite heterogeneous across the courses. So we've, the broad sort of headline is blended learning, but how that's implemented, it can vary quite a lot. And it probably varies also partly as a consequence of what is being taught. So in the course that I taught Margarita and her group this year, I totally changed what I was doing from before in terms of delivery, in that I videoed almost all of my lectures completely. So as Margarita said, the result was the students could look at those videos in their own time, and they could do this, all at once, or they could go back and review things and so on. So in the past, what we would have been me coming into a classroom, giving a lecture, and that being recorded. And then students can also go home and review those recordings. So that's still a technology that we have. It's just that right now, because of the COVID restrictions, the vast majority of our lecturing doesn't work like this, because we just avoid going into campus very frequently. We do come into campus, so I've got an interaction planned with my group later on this week. That's the first time I'm going to meet most of those students in person. So that does happen, and there is some intention to increase these kinds of interactions in the coming semester. So we will have more face-to-face interactions if the virus situation permits, and the part of this, I think, is that we will have more testing capabilities as well. So we should be able to manage that a little bit. Yeah, so that's really how how we've handled this. So I've given the students these online videos, and then I've come into seminars and spent quite a lot of time, actually every week, live interacting with the students, sometimes using what, an online whiteboard to set them tasks or allow them to ask questions, and then responding to those questions or task responses. And so I would say, actually, in terms of the total amount of time that, both the videos that I've created and then the amount of time that I've had with the students online in these interactions, our current cohort is getting more kind of input from me. But of course, it's still, there's still a significant amount of self-study involved, in the sense that you do need to watch the videos, do the readings and so on. So I would say that Margarita, what's your sense? What's the split between the two?
Yeah, so when I saw the question, so I was counting how many hours I have just for the lectures that we have. So I counted around 12 hours per week. So this is just going into Zoom or Microsoft Teams and attending the lecture. You have around 12 hours, which is really not that bad. But of course, before you attend the lectures, you have to do some work. So some of the lectures some of the modules you have to do readings, others you have to watch videos. And of course, it's really useful to watch them before you go to the lecture, because if you don't watch it, you're going to probably be a bit lost. So I would say that it's a really good balance, because 12 hours is really not that much per week. And you can use the rest of the time to actually study and put work into everything you're doing. Also, this master is very practical. So some of the coding and Excel, you don't really have to read, because reading is not really going to help you a lot. So you have to practice and practice as many times as you can, so you understand what's going on and you can find mistakes and then go and ask questions to your professors. So answering the question, I would say it's just a really good balance of just good work ethic and attending your lectures, as well as doing your work before the lectures.
Yeah.
If that helps.
Just if I may complement the information that has been presented, just in terms of the official guidelines of the university, I think that the numbers are something like 3 hours of contact time with the students. So this means lessons, tutorials, that sort of stuff. And then it is expected that students will devote 5 hours of self-study for each module. So that pretty much gives you a full week. And of course, this varies quite a lot, because if a module is hard, some modules are naturally a bit harder or maybe easier. And then each student has their own particular set of skills, so they might find something a bit easier. So it's all a bit variable. But on average, this should fill a full-time job a week. So roughly, it's like 8 hours per module times 4.
So one thing, obviously, that we ought to note here, given that we have students coming to us who are working, right, previously, and who are returning to work also, or that's the intention, then there is obviously some, let's say, there could be a tendency on the side of the employer or even on the side of the employee to try and treat this as an activity that you can sort of do on the side, right? And to try and maintain some kind of work. And all I can say, in my experience, this is quite tough. Certainly if you don't have a lot of previous experience. So as I mentioned to you previously, we've had students who have taken on jobs early. So the student I mentioned earlier, Ricardo, who does this security type work, he was offered his position sort of about a week or two after we started the group projects element. And I remember him coming to me and saying, I've got this job offer, and I said, forget it, Ricardo, don't do it. This is going to be, you can't handle this. It's too much. And he took the job anyway. And he's obviously still with the company. And Ricardo, what he did then was he worked day and night for 2 weeks before he started the position. He took holidays in between and used those holidays to catch up on the group work that he was doing. His group produced a fabulous piece of work, but he was extremely tired afterwards. Yeah, so it was very, very intense for him. And you know, so what I would say is you can do this for a couple of months, but to try and do it for the entire course is probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying it is possible, although it will be hard.
Yeah.
So we're running out of time, so I just might leave it with one question to you, Margarita. So if a student was on the fence of whether to apply for this program or accept their program, what would you say to them to encourage them to apply or accept their offer?
I would just say that for me, I think I have learned more in this 3 months of my master's than I have in most of time for my undergraduate degree. I would just say that this is a really good opportunity to get into the business world, because nowadays data is just so important. It doesn't matter if you're really good at business and if you know a lot about business terms and business just content, and if you don't know how to work with data, it's just so good analyzing graphs, just simple things that you're going to do in your for your job, presentations, analyzing graphs, just showing data to your team members. It just all comes back to just data. Even if it's a small amount of data, it all comes back to data. So I would really encourage just everyone to, if you can, to just do this program.
Thank you. So I've just posted in the chat a few key dates. So the application deadline for overseas applications for a January start is the 1st of December, so coming up quite quickly. And then for home and EU application, it is the 21st of December. Although I do encourage you to get your application through as soon as possible. We will be sharing this recording via email, so keep an eye out for an email from us this week, and we will share the recording with you. If you didn't get your question answered or have another question that you would like to contact us directly, I have posted up a link in the chat box, and that's our contact us form, and myself and one of the team will get back to you as soon as we can. So thank you very much, and thank you very much to our panel. It was fantastic to have you on, and we hope to see you virtually or even on campus sometime next year. So thank you very much and have a lovely day.
Thank you. Thank you, Lara.